The Lord be with you.
And with your spirit.
A reading from the Holy Gospel according to Luke.
Glory to you, O Lord.
The rulers sneered at Jesus and said, "He saved others. Let him save himself if he is the chosen one, the Christ of God." Even the soldiers jeered at him as they approached to offer him wine. They called out, "If you are the king of the Jews, save yourself." Above him, there was an inscription that read, "This is the King of the Jews." Now one of the criminals hanging there reviled Jesus, saying, "Are you not the Christ? Save yourself and us." The other, however, rebuking him, said in reply, "Have you no fear of God? For you are subject to the same condemnation. And indeed, we have been condemned justly, for the sentence we receive corresponds to our crimes. But this man has done nothing criminal." Then he said, "Jesus, remember me when you come into your kingdom." He replied to him, "Amen, I say to you, today you will be with me in paradise." The Gospel of the Lord.
Praise to you, Lord Jesus Christ.
So today we recognize Christ, the King of the universe. And it's a relatively new solemnity in the church. It began in 1925. Pope Pius XI put this into place for many good reasons. 50 years earlier, Nietzsche, a German philosopher, had just declared that God was dead. Hitler was then rising to power in Germany, and he had already become the leader of the Nazi Party. Mussolini was already in power in Italy, and in 1924, right after Lennon had died, Joseph Stalin took over in Russia. What we had at this time in our world was a totalitarian view and denial of God. And this culture was rising up all over Europe. And so Pope Pius XI found it very important to declare Christ as the King of the universe. Our readings today teach us so much about the kingdom of Jesus. The second reading that we heard today from Paul's letter to Colossians characterizes and describes Christ in this way. It said, "All things were created through him and for him. He is before all things, and in all things hold together. For in him all the fullness was pleased to dwell." And then our gospel today, what do we hear? We see our King, and he's enthroned upon a cross. The cross teaches us so much about our King. When Jesus was inaugurated the kingdom, it had nothing to do with the expectations of almost anyone at that time. The last thing that Jesus looked at, now you look at him on the cross, last thing he looked at, like as he hung upon that cross on Good Friday, was a king. I mean, here he is. Jesus is bathed in blood, not robed in royal regalia. He hung there naked. He was hammered to the cross with nails. His royal crown was thorns. It was not golden diadems. And to ridicule him, Pilate placed that inscription above his head that said, just to ridicule him, "Jesus of Nazareth, King of the Jews." the crowds, the chief priests, the Roman soldiers, and even the thief on his left all mocked Jesus. And if you are truly the king, then the thief would cry out, "Come down off that cross and save yourself." No, this was not the kind of king that the Jews expected. The Roman soldiers likewise were unprepared for a king like this. And Pontius Pilate even interrogated Jesus and said, "Are you the king of the Jews?" And Jesus answered something very, very important for him and for all of us to hear. He said, "My kingdom is not of this world. My servants would be fighting, not that I not be handed over to the Jews, but my kingship is not of this world." Pilate said, "Then so you are a king." But Jesus replied in describing that his kingdom, the kingdom that he was trying to establish, and he said, "You say that I am a king. For this I was born, and for this I have come into the world, to witness to the truth. Everyone who is of the truth listens to my voice." The Romans associated kingship with force, but Jesus said it was associated with truth. Jesus' true kingship on the cross, though, was not lost with everyone, for the criminal on his right had the ability to see just how special Jesus was. And as he hung there on pain himself on the cross right next to Jesus, he could really relate to the excruciating pain that Jesus was going through, for he was going through some himself. It was probably one of his worst days of his life, hanging there on the cross. But what he saw in Jesus was something very, very different. The pain that Jesus was going through had not gained an upper hand on Jesus. He saw in Jesus a love, a mercy, and a forgiveness, and a willingness to die for the truth. He saw truth incarnate. Jesus was triumphantly conquering the cross, and he began to see that to reign is to serve, to forgive, and to love. This surely must have been the long-awaited king that is hanging right next to him. Realizing this, he humbly begged Jesus, "Remember me when you come into your kingdom, Jesus." He could see that Jesus was about to establish a new kingdom, and that a kingdom that was going to be far greater than anything in or of this world. He realized that this dying man right next to him was going to somehow live. And at that moment, Jesus turned to him and he said to him, "Surely this day you will be with me in paradise." Jesus did not forget this man. He has not forgotten you. He has not forgotten me. And of course, as he hung there, we know that he did not remain on the cross. He conquered sin and death. And this is a love that demands a response from you and I. This is really what we celebrate today. And may we beg Jesus to reign in our hearts and to live with him by living ourselves a crucified life, a true sacrifice of love for God and for others. Let's truly make Jesus the ruler and the king of everything we do and all that we are.